It's just amazing in a country of 330 million people, the dumbest people all managed to get elected to the U.S. Senate. It's just a statistical anomaly I can't figure out. So I didn't forget about the Amy Coney Barrett hearings. I just think the Democrats are really destroying themselves, and I'd like to see them continue to do it because they're humiliating themselves, attacking the woman on her Catholic faith repeatedly, making insinuations, innuendo, just degrading stuff for such an accomplished woman. And it's disgusting. And as Paula said to me this morning, and she's right, you know, watching these idiots up there question a woman of such high intellect is quite rewarding for me because it exposes again how these members of the United States Senate and others, especially on the Democrat side, how it's just amazing in a country of 330 million people, the dumbest people all managed to get elected to the U.S. Senate. It's just a statistical anomaly I can't figure out. And when they deal with someone of superior intellect, like Amy Coney Barrett, who finished number one in her class, in her law class, they are so outmatched, it's just funny watching them collapse and wilt under pressure. But the Democrats, of course, are making a big stink. We saw Cory Booker and other losers up in the Senate yesterday saying this is such an anomaly, filling a Supreme Court seat by the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg in an election year. This is an anomaly, folks, for the liberals listening. That means it's unusual. I know we have to do the damn Bongino thesaurus here when you guys and ladies are listening. That's a shame. I feel bad. But is it really an anomaly? So the great Tom Elliott over at Grabien always has the best supercuts out there. And Tom put together a little supercut here of Democrats themselves from Hillary Clinton to Joe Biden talking about filling a seat in an election year. And it's not exactly the talking points from the focus group, lick your finger, see where the wind is blowing, that they're promoting now. This is the Democrats, a montage of them, a supercut, suggesting, yeah, we definitely have to fill that seat in an election year. Check this out.
The only court packing going on right now is going on with the Republicans packing the court now. It's not constitutional what they're doing.
Implicit in the Constitution is that the Senate will act on its constitutional responsibility of give its advice and consent. They, in my view, are required to give the nominee a hearing and a vote.
So far, most Senate Republicans have refused to even meet with Judge Garland, which means they've also refused to do their job and hold a hearing on his nomination. This is an abdication of the Senate's responsibility.
We hope the saner heads in the Republican Party will prevail on Chuck Grassley and on Mitch McConnell to do their job.
This is someone of great merit, a consensus candidate who, this fine public servant, deserves a hearing.
They're not being fair, and they're certainly not living up to the historic precedent of the Senate, which has never refused a hearing to a presidential nominee.
We've taken an oath to uphold the Constitution. Some of us better sit down there quietly and say, when we raised our hand to God, did we mean it or didn't we?
The court should not be dragged down into the ordinary morass and muck of partisan politics. And here, again, the Republicans, in fact, are shutting down the government.
President Obama has done his job and nominated Merrick Garland to be the 9th justice. It's time for the Senate Republicans to do their job.
Listen, I mean, no one actually believes the Democrats have any principles. No one's ever believed that, especially Democrats running for president up there in the Congress. But it's just a joke watching them say now how this is so unprecedented, while the very same people, Hillary Clinton, Biden, and others, are lecturing the press just a few years ago when Obama made an election year selection of Merrick Garland, telling us the exact opposite. You may say, well, the GOP blocked it. Yeah, but it's because the GOP was in charge of the Senate, and they could. And the Democrats would have done the same thing. So please spare me the nonsense, folks. This is political power. We elected Senate Republicans. They have a majority, and that's what they're going to do. When you win, you can do the same thing. I hope you don't. You may, Democrats. You can put up whoever you want for the judgeships, and you can advise and consent and place them in those seats. A-okay. I don't like it, but that's how the cookie crumbles, ladies and gents. But please spare me the media talking head nonsense about how the Democrats are so principled here and the Republicans started this fight. The Democrats started this decades ago with Robert Bork, where they had to politicize every single Supreme Court nomination. So please take your nonsense and ram it up your wazoo wherever the wazoo is. Another thing I heard yesterday during the hearings, which again is another Democrat lie. It's hard to parse through all the Democrat lies, but that's what I do for you on the show. I wake up every morning committed to debunking liberal nonsense because it's everywhere, but you do have to prioritize it because all of liberalism is nonsense. It's a forest fire. I was going to say something else, but I have to pass. You know what I was going to say? No, she doesn't know. Yeah, she can only imagine this. The Democrats keep bringing up in this hearing with Amy Coney Barrett, oh my gosh, Obamacare is going to go away and people with pre-existing conditions, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions are going to lose their health care. Ladies and gentlemen, Obamacare sucks. Obamacare will always suck. Why? I've explained this to you 1,000 times, but for my newer listeners, I'll explain it very simply again. Obamacare is two things. The people who like Obamacare only like it because they don't understand it. When you explain to people what Obamacare is, I'll get to the pre-existing conditions thing they're using against Judge Barrett and how that's nonsense too. I discussed it a little last week, but this is important you understand what Obamacare is first. I'm not kidding. When you ask people about Obamacare and they say it polls well till you tell them what Obamacare actually is. It is two things. Granted, there were subordinate details of it that are important too, but the two top of the totem pole, key tenets of Obamacare are a thing called community rating and another thing called guaranteed issue. It's basically this. Obamacare dictated to the insurance companies community rating, which means they couldn't charge people who are older more than three times more than they would charge people who are younger for roughly the same insurance coverage. Now, you may say to yourself, that sounds great. I'm all for that. Except for what? That's not mathematically possible, ladies and gentlemen, because older folks generally cost, insurance-wise, 5 times as much. You're wondering why your insurance costs went up? Because what insurance companies then were forced to do, because then they'd go out of business otherwise, you can't force insurance companies to charge people less than the product costs. It's like, the government's mandating Corvettes cost $30,000. Yeah, but they're $70,000. Doesn't matter. Charge $30,000. GM would go out of business. They'd lose $40,000 a car. Is this hard for anyone to understand? Not my audience, but for liberal dunces listening, they don't get this. They can't do basic math. So what the insurance companies did, because they were losing a fortune on policies for older folks and people who were sick because they couldn't charge them what it would actually cost, is they just bumped up the price for younger people and everyone else. Voila! Everyone else paid more. There was no way around the math. It's an immovable object math. What you cost, you cost. That's what you cost. Whether the government mandates you cost less or not, you're not going to cost less. You're just going to have to move the costs elsewhere, which is why everyone else's insurance went up and everyone's network shrunk. Then when you explain that to people, you say, hey, they mandated price caps through community rating on older folks' insurance. Like, that's great. I love that. What a great idea. And you say, yeah, but here's the catch. The prices were capped on older folks through community rating, but you in turn are going to have to pay double. They're like, oh, wait, I'm not so sure I like that anymore. Hold on. That's what happened. Why do you think your insurance went up? Why my plan was canceled? I tweeted it out yesterday. I still have the letter. Your plan will cease. I have it highlighted. It's on my Twitter and Parler account right now. Look at it. Also, they had guaranteed issue, making it even worse. Guaranteed issue meaning you had to issue people an insurance policy, health insurance, at almost any time. So what did people do? Not only did they game the system, they went out, waited till they got sick, and then bought insurance. And people are like, oh, but that's great. Everybody should be able to get insurance at any time. Really? You're sure? So your whole life, you've been paying premiums, right? Paying premiums, living a relatively healthy life. And now all of a sudden, your insurance is going through the roof because your neighbor who does nothing, smokes, drinks, drives a motorcycle around recklessly, doesn't stop for stop signs. They waited till they got in a car accident and God forbid came down with lung cancer and then said, no, now I want insurance. And now your insurance is double because you have to pay for that. When you tell people that, they're like, wait, that doesn't sound fair to me, because it's not.
You just heard Dan Bongino.